What up, y'all? Welcome to a very special edition of Replicon Radio. If you are a member of our Patreon, you get to hear this a whole entire week early. So don't miss out on future endeavors and exclusive merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, all kinds of freshness. Patreon.com/Replicon Radio. And as always, every Monday night, we have an exclusive interview. So make sure you guys check that out. RepliconRadio.com. 6 to 10 Central every Monday night. But without further motherfucking into, I don't even know how to talk. I'm so excited. Anyway, very special guest hanging out with me today, Mr. Lloyd Kaufmann. How you doing today, man?
I am doing great. Just talking to you I've lost 20 pounds. I've grown 6 inches, and I'm now a beautiful blonde woman. Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. That's incredible. I'm excited for that. You're gonna be a star in one of your movies now.
Well, it's a good chance. There's a very good chance of that, Paul. And Troma Entertainment has been in the forefront of the sexual revolution since 1974 when we started. And we are the herpes of the film industry. We're not going away.
It's one of the few times I would say herpes is a good thing. So thank you for that. Absolutely. That's awesome.
That's right. Exactly.
That's perfect. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining us here on Replicon Radio. We definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us. We got mad love for you and Toxie.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've tried for many years to get some time on Replicon Radio, but I've been rebuffed. So finally I made it. This is my 50th year making Troma movies like The Toxic Avenger and Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2, currently playing in New York City. So there you go.
That's awesome, man. So essentially...
I made it. I don't need no fucking red carpets at Cannes Film Festival when I can get on Replicon. So I did not go to the Cannes Film Festival this year.
That's all right. Well, hopefully someday that's actually true. That would be incredible. But
it is true. Cannes is a fascist, anti-Semitic piece of shit festival, and I went there for 40 some odd years, and they have gone back to their Nazi fascist roots.
That's terrible.
That's my opinion, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, you would know. I mean, you've been, like you said, you've been in the game for 50 years at this point. That's kind. I kind of want to. I know a lot of people know your story.
By the way, hold it. You can go on YouTube now. If you go and click my name or click From Festival to Fascism, I have created a very short documentary which details what happened to us after 47 years of going to Cannes. You can see what actually happened to us the last time we went, which was, I think, last year. And we'll never go back. So it's very disgusting.
You said it's called From Fashion to Fascism?
From Festival to Fascism.
Okay.
To fascism.
That makes more sense.
Cannes Film Festival. But now let's talk about what's good about America.
Yeah, well, what's good about America is Troma Entertainment and Lloyd Kaufmann. I know there are a lot of things have happened in the last, 50 years, 45 years. But I just kind of want to give the people that may not know your story just a brief history of Lloyd. Like, essentially, how did you go from Yale to Troma, meeting with Michael Harris in 74 and starting this amazing company that we know as Troma Entertainment? Like, how did it all go down for you back then? Like, how did life make such a sudden turn?
Well, that's a good question, Paul. I was on my way to being a teacher or a social worker. It was the 1960s. It was all about making the world a better place and peace and love and all that. But my freshman year, I was placed in a room with a movie nut. And even though I wanted to be a social worker and work with help people with hooks for hands how to finger paint, or teach bums how to paint happy faces on bead and string the beads together, I started slowly getting hooked on movies. And one day I was in the auditorium of the Yale Film Society, and I decided I didn't want to just teach the people with hooks for hands how to finger paint. I wanted to film the bums painting the happy faces on the beads, and decided to make movies. It was as simple as getting out of the easy chair, the lazy boy chair, and going to the refrigerator and cracking open a case of ecstasy or whatever. I don't know. It's a very easy decision, let's put it that way.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, back then it wasn't as simple as it is now.
Well, it shows you how important it is to get an education. It can change your life. I would have had a decent, God-fearing life if it hadn't been for Yale University. Now I'm making underground movies that the New York Times can't get enough of. All the fault of going to college. See, if you go to college, it changes your life. Anyway, what was your question? Sorry, Paul.
No, you're perfectly fine. No, absolutely. That's, I mean, it's as hilarious as it is. It's kind of true. You found your way, not the way you thought you were going to find, but you found your way, I guess.
Exactly. I fell in love with the cinema.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank God you did, or we wouldn't have all these fantastic movies. But like I was saying, like nowadays everybody has cell phones. They can make movies. You can edit a video on your phone. Obviously, back then, that was a whole that was a hard thing to do, make a movie. Like how did you and Michael join up and like actually find the funding and the ways to make your first film or a couple films? Like how'd you guys figure that out at such a young age?
Well, I had lips like a woman, and that helps.
Absolutely.
Also, you're right. It was a lot more expensive in those days. The first movie that I made that actually played in a theater that charged for tickets was in 1970, Battle of Love's Return, and that was Oliver Stone's first movie-making experience also. And Battle of Love's Return, even though it was in 16-millimeter color, but it still cost, back in 1970, it still cost about $8,000. So if you look at that's 50 years ago. So $8,000 today would be probably $100,000. So that's a lot of. Today you could make a movie for $2,000. Today all you need is talent. You really don't need the money. And since we have innovation like Kickstarter and things like that, I have Troma fans who have collected $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Nobody's ever heard of them. They just go on Kickstarter and they say they want to make a movie that's kind of a homage to Troma, and nobody's ever heard of them, and they've got $15,000 a month later. Wow. It's pretty good.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
So the point is, the point is, when I started, you needed money. You really needed money. The first 35-millimeter movie that I produced was Sugar Cookies, and it was $150,000. Cry Uncle, directed by John G. Avildsen, which Troma distributes, was about $150,000. Joe by John Avildsen was $150,000 in 1970, with no stars, nobody known in that movie, and Joe was nominated for an Academy Award for the screenplay, something that never would have happened today. So yes, it was more expensive in those days to make movies, comparatively speaking, but it's more difficult today to live off your movie. We made Sugar Cookies. It kind of broke even. We made Battle of Love's Return for $8,000. Played at a few theaters. Played on, I think in Korea. Bought it a few theaters, whatever, colleges. But now, even though movies cost nothing, it's very hard to live off your art. Before, in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, if you made a movie that was slightly commercial, you could make money, for sure, if you kept the budget in the under $500,000. In fact, we used to pretty much guarantee to our investors that if they invested, the worst case that would happen would be that they'd break even after 2 years. That was the worst case scenario. Now, because all the rules against monopoly have been done away with, thanks to Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton, or at least on their watches, Unless you're in with one of the vassals of one of the giant devil-worshipping international media conglomerates, you can't make any money off your movie. You can't. You can't do it anymore. It's impossible. So, and I can tell you, I'm president of Troma Entertainment, and we are not making any money. It's only thanks to our fans who buy our DVDs and Blu-rays and posters and T-shirts and toys and skateboards, off of the Troma store online, TromaDirect.com, the Troma website store. It's only thanks to our fans. They book our movies into theaters. They go out and promote our events. We've got Troma Dance Film Festival coming up. It's our fans. We are fan fuel, and that's the only reason that we are still around. And we are debt free at least. But
that's good.
We're the last of the independent movie studios. There are none left that have any longevity. There are no movie studios that are serious that have even 5 years, much less. We are 45 years old, and it's exclusively. It's thanks to our fans and, of course, Replicon Radio, which is a major benefit. Has benefited Troma in a million ways.
Absolutely, that's what we're here. We're here for you, man. And 45 years. That's incredible for any company, especially one that's survived fully independent this entire time. So, for real, congratulations on that. Absolutely.
It's a tribute to our fans and the people who work for Troma, because with a nut like me running the company, it's a miracle it's still. And also, I have to give full credit to Michael Hers, who not only is a great movie director, but a terrific partner and an excellent CEO. He basically is the boss. I do whatever he says. And he lets me make these crazy movies.
That's good. Well, thank you, Michael, as well. So obviously, you guys started this company. You started making these, incredible movies. Was your original idea for Troma to be what it has become, or would you have full intentions to become and make blockbuster hits like some people that have worked for Troma have gone on to do, or did you want to stay in this world that you created? Was that the goal from the get-go?
No, not at all. I hate my life. Come on. The point is, I speak French, and they had at the Yale Film Society there was a stack of magazines called the Cahiers de Cinema, notebooks of cinema, and they were written. They're the magazine published by the Cinémathèque Française, which is the movie museum of the world, basically. It's the most important movie museum in the world. And the people writing the magazine in those days were Jean-Luc Godard and Claude Chabrol and other journalists. They were journalists, and they were evolving into filmmakers. But they propounded what they called the auteur theory of cinema, which means they want the director to be the author and in total control of the movie. So movies like the Black Panther is not what they would consider art. A Jerry Lewis movie is art. A Lloyd Kaufmann movie is art. A movie by Woody Allen is art. A movie that is basically reflecting the heart, soul, and the brain of the filmmaker is what the Cinémathèque and the Cahiers de Cinema consider serious film. And I bought into that theory. I got brainwashed, and I bought into that theory. And one night during my senior year at Yale University, I took LSD. And I had two opportunities. I had a job offer from a Hollywood movie called The Owl and the Pussycat. I could have been a toilet cleaner on that movie. I starred Barbra Streisand. Or I could have been a toilet cleaner at a shitty little company in New York called Canon. And thanks to my good friend LSD, I decided I would work for the shitty little company in New York called Canon, and stay in New York and try to be an auteur filmmaker. And boy, was that a mistake. Don't take LSD, especially if you live in Missouri.
Oh,
because,
that's where we are.
Oh, is that right? Oh, because they're strange. It could be a beautiful sunny day, and you may think there are floods, but it's just the drugs kicking in. You may think there are, but it's not true. It's a beautiful sunny day there. Just remember that.
Make sure everybody be careful out there and try not to do LSD in Missouri.
Especially in Jefferson. Don't do it in Jefferson.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Where were we now? We were talking about LSD. Yeah, can you get me some? Oh, no, I guess the Chinese can get us some. I'll get some fentanyl from our good friends in China.
Oh, God.
Who are going to negotiate with these fuckers, right? We're going to trust them and negotiate. I wouldn't even negotiate with them, right? I majored in Chinese studies, right? My dream was to make a movie in China. And I was fairly fluent in Chinese studies. I can still get around. And I have a daughter who is totally fluent and can read it. And both of us are disgusted with China. We wouldn't piss on China at this point. We've been there several times, but they're genocidal. It's a dictatorship. Not to mention all the bootleg. Every Troma movie is sold on the streets, and none of the money that the Chinese elites are making goes to the poor people. The military and the bureaucrats in the government own the Blu-ray plants and the streaming services that make money off of our bootleg movies. So fuck China.
That's terrible.
Fuck them. Yeah,
that's
fuck them. And we shouldn't even be signing. We shouldn't even be talking to them.
Yeah, that's completely fucked up. I agree. It's madness. But I could definitely see you guys being.
They got concentration camps, right? They brought back the good old concentration camps. They've got millions of Uyghurs, Muslims. Here we are in America. We're blowing, we're filleting the Muslims here in America, right? And in China, they're being exterminated in concentration camps. New York Times I'm not making this up. New York Times, the newspaper of record, has written about it, shown photographs. This is true.
Oh, wow.
So it ain't bullshit, and it's a very bad thing. And we should be, the world should be just turning their backs on China. Not to mention what they're doing in Tibet, right? They've already pretty much exterminated the Tibetan culture and the Tibetans. And you know what they say, early Tibet and early to rise. But in a Chinese dictatorship, you can't do that.
I am. That sounds terrible. I honestly don't know. I don't know a lot about it, but I definitely want to.
Well, Chinese government very bad, very bad. Wow. Taiwan good, China bad.
Taiwan good, China bad. Yeah, right. I would definitely look at. I honestly don't know much about it, but I'll definitely do my research on it because that sounds terrible. Hopefully, there's something we could do.
You could. There's not much we can do other than do what we're doing, which is getting the word out. I mean, it's out. It's just in fact, the major studios they're censoring their scripts. They're writing scripts so that they can get into the Chinese market. They're censoring themselves just the way they did when Hitler was running Germany. To get their movies into Germany, they would edit the scripts to conform to the German standards. That's what they're doing now, so they can get into. China permits about 50 American movies to get into their marketplace and share revenue, and obviously those are going to be the blockbusters, and the big shots are who knows, they can each time they. Right now, they probably can't have anything about that might suggest that the Muslim religion is good. They certainly can't have anything that would suggest that Jefferson, Missouri, is a good place. They're censoring bit by bit by bit, and eventually it'll be the Chinese will blame it on the Jews. That's the way it goes. That's the way it always goes. So I'm staying right here in Tromaville, where I know it's safe.
Wow, that's terrible. Well, you might have to save us a spot there if shit goes bad. I'll have to come bunker up with you guys.
Boy, am I boring. Sorry, I'm just a bitter old underground filmmaker.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. At least you're obviously more informed than I am about what's going on in the world. So, that's terrible, especially in 2019. Like the fact that
it's something, yeah. And China was headed on the right track in the 70s and 80s. Again, I've been there maybe 10 times, and they were moving into sort of a democratic capitalist society, and boy, it ain't that anymore. It's terrible.
Wow, that's fucking terrible.
What can you do?
Well, let's try and get the word out there, and hopefully we can change their evil ways.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. Exactly, that's what we have to do. Yeah, yeah.
Well, kind of a weird segue, but to kind of bring it back positive, talking about big blockbuster movies and whatnot. Your biggest hit, I mean, as some would say, is gearing up for a Hollywood reboot right now. Talking about obviously Toxic Avenger.
Here's the thing. If we can keep making our movies for $500,000 or less, we have total freedom. Nobody tells us what to do. That's what art is all about, and that's why I bought into the Cahiers du Cinéma from the French Cinematheque. I bought into this philosophy of the auteur filmmaker because I don't think you could, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Rembrandt painted a painting, I don't think he had 6 little boys in suits, little white boys in suits and ties, kind of telling him what to do. And, oh no, don't use red there because, people in Italy, they don't like red. Go green here for Italy, and you can put in brown here because the Chinese like brown. And right, he painted his paintings. Nobody told him what to do. And Van Gogh, right? You might say Van Gogh. Van Gogh, that's the correct spelling, the guy who cut his ear off. Nobody told him how to paint. He painted from the heart, and he didn't sell one painting. But that's what they call art. And, of course, after he's dead, he's the most popular painter, the most valuable painter, if you want to talk dollars, in history, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
So the point is about art. It's not about blockbusters or committees or white boys in suits telling you what to do and who to replace Olivia Dukakis with Lindsay Lohan because Lindsay Lohan tracks better. It's not about that, in my opinion, and that's why I stay in the underground and I make my little movies. And someday the mainstream will get it, and actually they're getting it now. Somebody's remaking Toxic Avenger, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
big company that is distributing. Pikachu or whatever that stupid thing with what is that thing
Pikachu?
With the
Pokemon?
Pikachu.
Yeah,
Pikachu.
Yeah. Legendary Pictures, right?
But I haven't seen it yet, but I hear it's very good. And they also have another one out now, Godzilla, a $200 million blockbuster. So they're going to make the big version of Toxic Avenger, and that which means Uncle Lloyd will hopefully get a check, so I can move off the dog food and maybe move up to some good bird seed to feed my children. And and they've got a really good writer on the case. What the hell is it? Macon Blair, who has written and directed only one movie, but it's very original, and he will do a good job. He's a huge Troma fan.
That's
He's
awesome.
he also wrote The Green Room, and he's in a couple of movies by the director of The Green Room. So Macon Blair has acted, and he's made one really good movie that I've seen called I Don't Feel Safe in This World Anymore. It's really weird and dark and original, and this guy can make Toxie. If he makes it, I think it'll be great. And even if it doesn't make money, it'll be art.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you have, like, with something like that? Do they have, like, do you have any involvement in that? I mean, do they own the rights to that now? Like, how does all that work for you?
The director says he wants me involved, but it's again, I believe in the auteur theory of cinema. So it's all about the director's event. When we distribute a movie at Troma, like Mutant Blast, we produced a movie called Mutant Blast, and one of my proteges directed it. And we let him design the poster. We let him design the cover of the Blu-ray. It's a film by Fernando Ale. So we believe that it's all about the filmmaker, and we will do what the filmmaker wants. So in the case of Toxic Avenger and the big budget, $1 billion Toxic Avenger, I'll do whatever the director wants to do. And this guy is also writing. I just hope they let him direct also. And they seem to be on that track. And the people I've met from this company seem terrific. They know Troma. They've seen Tromeo and Juliet. They've seen Terra Firma. They've seen Troma's War. They love Citizen Toxie, which in my opinion is the best of the 4 Toxic Avenger movies. They're genuinely Troma fans. And yet they're making these blockbusters, huge movies.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, hopefully they do it right and don't turn it into, some sort of.
I think if they let Macon Blair write and direct, they will have a great movie. And whether or not it makes movies, in the fullness of time, the Toxic Avenger remake will be a very, very worshipped piece of art. And the musical, there is a Toxic Avenger musical that's like family-oriented. The little old ladies with blue hair and the Troma fans with piercings in their penises and tattoos on their faces, they both go to the theaters. And it played in Broadway, New York for a year, and got all sorts of prizes, and then it played in the West End of London, the Toxic Avenger musical, wow. And it was written by David Bryan. David Bryan is the keyboard for Bon Jovi, original Bon Jovi member, and Joe DiPietro, who's a Tony Award-winning playwriter. He wrote the book Toxic Avenger. He wrote the play, and David Bryan the music, and the musical is terrific. And I had nothing to do with it. It was in their hands, and they are really, really talented. And I gave them some notes at the very beginning, which I think they threw away, and rightfully so. And they did a terrific job. In fact, the Toxic Avenger musical, my wife has seen it about 50 times because it's the only thing I've been associated with my entire career that she can take her friends to see without them having.
I can understand that. That's incredible, though. Like, could you even imagine, like, in '85 when the Toxic Avenger came out, the first superhero from Jersey, the crazy Troma film becomes a Broadway musical, let alone a Saturday morning cartoon for a time, and now possibly even a big, Hollywood reboot. Like, that's incredible. And you're bringing people together, like you said, the tattooed, pierced up punk rockers and the old ladies are all going to a Broadway musical together because of the Toxic Avenger.
Well, early in our history of Troma, we had a slogan, "World Peace Through Celluloid," and I do believe in that. I think that one of the reasons that the Soviet Empire collapsed, and one of the reasons the wall came down, is because of movies, because the video cassettes were smuggled into Russia, and people looked at the video cassettes and saw the freedom of speech. And they saw the Walmarts and the supermarkets with rows and rows and rows of fresh fruit, and nobody waiting in line for a stale loaf of bread. And movies lead to world peace through celluloid, but not censored movies, and certainly not the kind of shit that's coming out of China.
I can agree. I mean, I would say entertainment, uncensored underground entertainment, movies, music. Even little things like what we do here, we don't have bosses. Nobody censors us. We do whatever the hell we want. It's just, Well, that type of stuff gets it out there.
Just the fact that you're having Lloyd Kaufmann from Troma Entertainment, creator of the Toxic Avenger, on your show, even if there are only 3 people listening, it may open them up, and maybe they'll try out Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2, which is now available for rental on Troma Now, our streaming service, Troma Now, and maybe they'll discover a new world, because Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2, like all the movies that Michael Hers and I have made, deal with very important social issues. Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2 is very entertaining, but it also has some very serious political and sociological themes. About crap food that the students in public schools are being fed, and about bullying in the schools, and also it's a very hot lesbian couple who are bullied and the way they are today. There's still this issue of legalization of LGBTQ rights. So it's a very important film. It just happens to be a lot of fun and very funny, and has singing in it, and has a couple of musical numbers, and sex and cartoon violence. And the Museum of Modern Art, actually in New York, premiered Volume 1. And if you guys know of a theater that would like to play Return to Nukem High Volume 1 and or Return to Nukem High Volume 2, and they can stand alone. You don't have to play them together. Because Volume 2 just played in New York and had encore for a week, and then had encore screenings. It stands alone very nicely. New York Times reviewed it, didn't even talk about Volume 1. So the point is, if you guys or any of your listeners could call their local theater and find a screening for Return to Nukem High or Return to Nukem High, Return to Nukem High, aka Volume 2, I could come there. I could show up.
That would be incredible. We do actually have a few cinemas around here that actually do things like that. It's something we might have to look into checking out. We still have a couple independent film houses, a couple of them.
Well, good. See if they're interested, and we'd be happy to. At the very least, we can send them the movies. And if they want me to come and do a Q&A, I just did 4 cities in Texas. Very successfully. Except for one, they were all one-night stands, but they were full houses, and the other theater was two nights. So, I could come there and on my way to California, or on my way to somewhere else. I do one. If I'm not making a movie, I am the face of Troma, and I do a lot of personal shows. So you could. See if anybody's interested.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And I don't think we've had any Troma movies in Missouri in the entire state. I'd be very surprised if we had any movie in the entire state of Missouri that we know of. Maybe in some bars or something.
Yeah.
But it's time for us to have something in your fine state, to get some theaters.
Yeah,
I think I honestly think if there is an independent theater in your area, I would imagine that it will be well attended, especially if I'm going to show up. It always, anytime the theaters usually show the movie once and maybe twice, and if I show up, it's always a full house.
That'd be definitely. I'll look into that, man, because that would be incredible, just for our city alone to have that.
Be great, and as I said, Troma is fan fuel. If I direct a movie, usually there are about 200 theaters that will play it eventually, one by one, not all at once. And usually, I'd say half of them are identified thanks to the fans who go to the managers and say, "Hey, we want Lloyd." We just played Las Vegas. It was a fan who contacted the theater. They did 2 nights of Troma, and they made a lot of money. We made some money, and it all worked out.
Awesome.
And I spent some time in Las Vegas.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Well, I'm still taking the penicillin shots, but
I would say St. Louis won't be nearly as much fun as Vegas, but
St. Louis is great. I love St. Louis. I've done book signings. I've written 7 books, and I've done several book signings in St. Louis. St. Louis is very cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So yeah, talking about Return to Nukem High, just like we kind of mentioned Toxic Avenger, if you had to put Troma movies in some sort of order, Nukem High is probably second in command behind Toxic Avenger. And this one is, so you did Class of Nukem High, this is essentially a sequel to a sequel to a sequel, but a standalone?
Well, is
that kind of how that works?
That's a good question. The Class of Nukem High, around 1986, there are 5 movies in that, what you would call a franchise. There's Class of Nukem High. There's Subhumanoid Meltdown, Class of Nukem High Part 2.
That's the one with the squirrel.
Then there's the Good, the Bad, and the Subhumanoid, which is Class of Nukem High Part 3. And then skip 25 years or 30 years, and then comes along Stars, S-T-A-R-Z. They wanted to remake Class of Nukem High, and I said I would do it if they didn't censor me. And so they financed the Class of Nukem, Return to Nukem High, Volume 1, But we wanted to make a 2-volume movie because Quentin Tarantino told me to do something more ambitious. So I decided, like Kill Bill, I'll make 2 volumes. And so now we have Volume 2, Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2. But each movie, like Kill Bill, can stand alone.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and I know I honestly haven't seen it, and I want to see it, but I'll have to get it on the
you can see. Yeah, you can see Troma. You can see Return to Nukem High Volume 1 and 2 on Troma now. You go to watch.troma.com, and the first month is free, so you could see 200 or 300 movies for free, and just use the first month, and then use a different credit card and get a second month and do it for free.
Hey, there you go.
Or you can support, or for $4 a month or whatever it is, $4.99 a month, you could support the last independent movie studio of any note, and keep me in drugs. I mean, keep Uncle Lloyd.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, support $4.99 a month to watch endless movies is not a bad deal for anybody. So.
No, and they're good. Or you can rent Volume 2. I think that's the only one available for rental. You could rent or buy it for 50 cents or whatever. So check it out. Troma now. Watch.troma.com.
There it is. So another thing about your big characters. We're looking at a Hollywood reboot on Toxic. We got Return to Nukem High. I would say the next character in line would be Sgt Kabukiman. Can we see his return sometime in the near future?
Well, great that you mentioned Sgt Kabukiman NYPD. Doug Sackman, who is another one of my proteges, he is obsessed with Sgt Kabukiman NYPD, and he and John Brennan. John Brennan is one of the producers of our latest film, Shakespeare's Shitstorm, which we just shot. He and Doug have a TV series, a web series called Kabukiman's Cocktail Corner, which is very good. It's free on Troma Movies on YouTube. It's all free. Although I think the new episodes are on Troma now. They're more expensive. The ones with better production value. The latest episodes are on Troma now, I believe it's. But Kabukiman's Cocktail Corner is a very funny and informative sketch show with some great bands. It usually has music, and a lot of people say it's funnier and more interesting and much more cutting edge than Saturday Night Live. So you might check out Kabukiman's Cocktail Corner. And Doug Sackman, at this very minute, is trying to organize a sequel to Sgt. Kabukiman NYPD, and Doug will play Kabukiman, I hope. He is the Kabukiman of today, Doug Sackman.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so go check out Kabukiman's Cocktail Corner, watch the free episodes, get excited about it, and then you got more shit to watch on Troma Now. So there you go.
I think Sgt. Kabukiman NYPD, the movie, is also on Troma Now. Troma Now. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Well, you are.
What?
You are awesome.
I'm trying, man. It's the only time I'm awesome is when I'm talking about Lloyd Kaufmann or Troma. So,
what do you do when you're not a $1 million radio host?
I mean, that's essentially all I do.
Is that just radio?
Well, I mean, I deliver food for people.
Well, that's very important. As a matter of fact, it just so happens if you go to my Instagram at Lloyd Kaufmann, you can see the Blue Apron trophy wife cooking up Blue Apron. Speaking of delivering food, wow. Are you familiar with Blue Apron by any chance?
I've heard of them. Yeah,
it's a food delivery service that delivers you all the ingredients for a $200 gourmet meal for two, and everything is chopped up and all ready to go. It gives you a beautiful laminated recipe card that you can save, a big loose leaf folder card, and you make your own damn gourmet dinners for about 20 minutes. And if you had these in a restaurant, you would be paying $150, $200. So, and that's you get delivered every week. We get 3 meals, and they're delicious. And go to my Instagram. I haven't filmed the Blue Apron Trophy Wife for maybe a month. You have to go back in time on my Instagram. But it's a wonderful delivery. Very good, speaking of delivery foods.
There you go. Go check that out. Get you some delicious food and learn more about it, courtesy of Lloyd on his Instagram.
Well, you should look into Blue Apron. Not only could you deliver the food to yourself, since you're an expert on food delivery, but you could cook it yourself. And it's a great Blue Apron is great for dates, because if you're in a movie theater with a man, let's say you go out with a guy, you're sitting there in the dark for an hour and a half. You don't know, if you make a move, sometimes it's not such a good thing. You start cooking, and you joke and the music. You have a bottle of wine to go while you're cooking. Then while you're slip a roofie in with the tenderloin of whatever it is, and you're all set for the evening, right?
Absolutely. Does Blue Apron deliver the roofie as well?
It's a great date. Great date thing.
Is that included? Is the roofie included in the delivery?
No, not included.
That's unfortunate.
I think, but just to call up Pizza Hut, those guys are pretty good with the drugs.
Yes, they are.
I think those guys can help you out.
Absolutely.
Notice the way they drive.
I worked there for a long time. That's awesome.
A long time. That's more dangerous.
I agree. So you did mention it previously. I guess the next movie for Lloyd is Troma's next dabble into Shakespeare with the Shakespeare shitstorm, which I guess essentially is your version of the Tempest, correct?
Yes, it's actually the title treatment is hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm.
Oh.
Hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm, because it's sort of one of the main themes of the movie is social justice warriors and the internet a bit. It's one of the themes, so I put the hashtag next to the title. Hashtag. It's not we're not editing hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm, and it is indeed my interpretation of Shakespeare's The Tempest, and The Tempest is my favorite Shakespearean play. And I waited until I was old so that I could really feel what Prospero was feeling and feel the issues that Shakespeare wrote about, many of which are about old age and losing power and magic. But from the time I was in about 3rd or 4th grade, I was very fascinated with the Tempest.
That's awesome. Like, is there? You said you finished filming, you're editing. Is there an expected timeline on the release of that?
Well, as you know, it's not that easy for us to release a movie, so we have to finish the movie and then see. We had the Museum of Modern Art did a big opening for Return to Nukem High Volume 1, and then the Museum of the Moving Image in New York did a whole day of Nukem High, concluding with the nighttime premiere of Return to Nukem High, aka Volume 2. And that kicked it off, so we got the attention of a lot of movie theaters. So we have to figure out what we're going to do with Shakespeare Shitstorm. Maybe there'll be a festival that coincides, and we can do a big publicity. We have to see how we get the word out, and
Absolutely.
It depends. We're going to on our fans. We haven't finished theatrical distribution on Return to Nukem High, aka Volume 2, and we make our movies for the big screen. As you know, Paul, we've got lots of detail in the background. So our frames are always filled with people in the background doing funny things or fighting, or there's always the screen. Our movies are not about 4 women in bikinis running through the woods and a guy with an axe chasing them. Yeah. Our movies have thousands of people, and there's lots to look at, and you miss a lot if you're watching them on a small screen. But luckily you have the remote to go back and check the detail. But on a big screen, it's a totally different experience, and our fans really enjoy seeing our movies in a communal format on a big screen. They also like the whole sex that comes afterwards. So, what can I say?
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh.
But hopefully we'll start seeing it maybe popping up this year, like later in the year, maybe.
What, Shakespeare Shitstorm?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, not this year.
I don't know. We'll have to see what happens when it's finished. You know.
Absolutely.
We'll see. Maybe if we can open it in Los Angeles to qualify for the next year's Academy Awards, maybe we go to Los Angeles first. With Return to Nukem IAK Volume 2, we opened in Los Angeles first, and then and it got good reviews in the LA Times and LA Weekly and blah, blah, blah. So some theaters called up, and, we just have to feel our way. We have absolutely no, we can't, and we don't have any money to advertise, or we have very little money to advertise. So we have to see what happens. Time I can't predict. All I know is that it's my best and most personal and most entertaining movie, as good as Return to Nukem IAK Volume 2 is. Shakespeare Shitstorm, I think, really says it all, and I think it's very, very funny. Nobody who's seen the test screenings, the focus groups, and those are rough cuts. Nobody has given it less than an 8, and that we've had a lot of people who have never heard of Troma watching it. So I think it will be a wonderful film. I think it's going to be really good. I hope.
I'm sure it will. I'm excited to see it. I know a lot of people are kind of talking about it because since it is your back Troma going at Shakespeare again, because obviously one of your other most popular films, which launched the career of Mr. James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, was another Shakespeare-ish moment with Tromeo and Juliet, which has obviously become a Troma classic. Actually, personally got me into Troma because it frightened and offended me so much that I fell in love with it. So that's...
Just as I was obsessed with the Tempest, with Tromeo and Juliet, there was a retrospective of Troma movies in London at the British Film Institute. It was when we made Sgt Kabukiman NYPD, so it goes back quite a ways. And it was on for a week, so they had to. I was in London, they brought me over, and they had to take me somewhere to, they had to, do something with me while I was there. So they took me to Stratford-on-Avon, Shakespeare's home. And while I was there, I had I'm a big Shakespeare fan, and I had sort of a religious experience while I was at Shakespeare's birthplace, and Shakespeare's spirit entered my body. I can't tell you which orifice Shakespeare's spirit exited my body.
Oh, boy.
But the result was Tromeo and Juliet. I decided to make Tromeo and Juliet and put most of it in iambic pentameter, and I worked on that script for 5 years, and finally James Gunn became my assistant on that during that time, and he figured out how to write the script. He did it. He did it. He's a genius. Whatever happened to James Gunn?
He's making these little small movies now over at Marvel or whatever.
He'll make it at some point. He's going to make it. I know. He's talented and a really nice guy. He's a good guy. Most of the people in the industry are scum of the earth. But the people who've come out of Troma, like James Gunn and Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the guys who invented South Park, and Eli Roth, who did Cabin Fever and Hostel, the people that have come through our hallways at Troma, they are all nice people, and they love cinema. I don't think there's anybody who works at Troma who doesn't really, really, really love the cinema. And the ones who are not that way, they don't last. They either get out or we kick them out. The people who want to make, Suicide Squad. Although James Gunn is making Suicide Squad, and he's going to make a good Suicide Squad. He's going to make a great Suicide Squad. And he said he was going to kill me in Suicide Squad.
That's what I heard. I heard you're going to make a cameo in there.
Well, he said that he would kill me so I could be killed. He wanted to kill me in both the universes, the DC universe and the Marvel universe.
To make sure you can never get another part, right?
I told him to do it. Well, I was hoping he would kill me for real.
That would be that'd be cinematic history right there, wouldn't it?
Trifecta.
It'd be upsetting to the majority of the people, especially film people.
Hey, I'm all for it. I've had enough.
No, but yeah. Speaking of James Gunn, I mean,
well, I have to say, being on Replicon Radio, I think it's given me new. I feel more optimistic. I feel my juices flowing.
Yeah. It's a new dawn, a new day.
Exactly. It's a new day, a new dawn.
That's perfect, man. It's, I mean, obviously, 45 years in making movies. You guys have launched so many careers. Obviously, everybody knows James Gunn now because of Guardians and doing the Suicide Squad. But there's like a ridiculous list. Obviously, you mentioned Oliver Stone, Eli Roth, Trey Parker, and Matt Stone. Everyone from Carmen Electra, Billy Bob Thornton, even Kevin Costner. Like, did you ever like look back and like, holy shit, like, why are these people paying me or some shit? Like, it's crazy the amount of people that come from Troma.
I didn't direct all those movies. Samuel Jackson's movie we financed, but I directed. So some of these movies we were involved in just because they're independent movies that are good, they're great. And in fact, Kevin Costner's movie Sizzle Beach, USA, is so good that Kevin Costner went back to the beach and the water and made a $200 million movie called Waterworld, and based on Sizzle Beach, USA. He loved it so much, but that was not a Troma. Waterworld was not a Troma movie, and I didn't direct Sizzle Beach, USA. That was Eric Lucille, who went on to direct Subhumanoid Meltdown, Class of Nukem High Part 2. So I cannot take credit for discovering all the people, but certainly James Gunn and Trey Parker and Eli Roth and Oliver Stone and Marissa Tomei and Vincent D'Onofrio, who blew his brains out in Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. There are a lot of famous people that have come out of Troma, right? And they're all great people. They're all wonderful. They're all just real lovely people. But as I mentioned, and as you alluded, most of the people in the industry are scum.
Well, it's good. It's good at least a few that have come through your hallowed halls have at least, stayed true for the most part.
Well, I've met a few people who didn't come through our halls who are the best people in the world. John Voight, who's won 2 Oscars, he's terrific. He's the most idealistic person I've ever met. I mean, he doesn't care who you are. He takes you seriously, and he loves Troma, even though he doesn't like the sex and violence. But he gets the satire. He calls me the Euripides of a movie world, the Euripides of filmmaking. He's the best guy. He's right on every issue, and totally idealistic. And I've never been able to work with him, unfortunately. Stan Lee, I've known him for 50 years, and we wrote scripts together, and he was the best in the world. And we never made a movie together. We did write at least one full script that got optioned together, and some other projects we wrote together that didn't go anywhere. There are a few people like that. They're the best. Larry Cohen, who just died. John Avildsen, my mentor. I mean, I did work with him, but I didn't discover him. So there are great. The best people in the world are in the movie industry, in my opinion, but there are very few of them. A very small percentage.
Absolutely.
Put it that way.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you. I know you were really good friends with Stan. Rest in peace. And obviously with James being involved, you got James being involved. Like the whole Marvel cinema thing. I think, even though some of them may or may not be, it's like one of the greatest things to happen in movie history, and it's amazing for Stan Lee to be able to see that happen. Like, I just, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on Stan, obviously being your friend, or his legacy, or his inspiration to you, or just, in filmmaking in general. Like,
Well, his big thing with me was he wanted us to be more mainstream. He wanted us to cut down on some of the stuff in our movies that limits our audience. And from a business point of view, he's absolutely correct. But I'm of a different world, you know. And but he still played cameos in about 10 of our movies. Stan Lee is in Return to Nukem, a.k.a. Volume 2, and we will dedicate hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm to Stan Lee. Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2, is dedicated to Lemmy from Motorhead, who was in about 6 of our movies, and a great guy, and Joe Fleischaker, who was our 500-pound action hero, but also died right, you know, as we were making the movie, I guess, whatever. Yeah, in Volume 2, and he died right after it was finished. So we've dedicated that movie to those two, and Volume 2 will be dedicated to Stan.
Wow,
and
awesome.
Indeed, but his favorite Troma movie was not The Toxic Avenger, it was Sgt Kabukiman, NYPD, and he made a few calls back in the 90s. He tried to get Jim Carrey interested in playing a bigger budget version of Sgt Kabukiman, NYPD, but nobody answered the phone.
Wow. That's terrible. Well, yeah, mad love to Stan, for sure.
Yeah, he asked me to send my archives, such as they are, to the same place that his archives are stored, which is in Oklahoma at the American Heritage Institute. It's at the university in Oklahoma, and so I kind of look at it there. You know, it's almost like our coffins are next to each other, although it's archives. And his archives, I know, are meticulously organized because Stan was meticulous. And my archives, I just have garbage. You know, I never had a secretary. I never had a secretary my entire life. So for the last 3 or 4 years, people have been just putting stuff they think that's interesting that's laying around the Troma building. They put it in a box and they make a list of what's in the box and they send it to the archives. So
I can see that. I've seen videos of The Office. I can imagine.
The graduate students at some point, when I'm dead, who decide to research, they'll have to organize. There'll be a lot of organizational necessity.
I can only imagine. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys have the Troma now. Watch.troma.com. If you guys want to watch any Troma movie, they have their own streaming service. Something I kind of wanted to ask you about with the launch of that recently, with streaming becoming so popular, you guys were actually at the forefront of that, being part of Netflix and Amazon and Google, and essentially you ended up getting fucked in that situation as well, or wanting to be censored. Like, I just want to know if you wanted to speak on like you helping these giant conglomerates.
That's a very good point. Here's what happens when you're an independent filmmaker. The new technology, like HBO comes along, and they say, "Hey, Troma, you know, we want to play your movies. We really like your movies, but we're starting up now. We just don't have any money. We don't know if HBO is going to work out, and so we really can't pay you very much." What the truth is they can't get the mainstream movies on HBO when HBO started, because the deals for the mainstream movies were signed up for a certain time to put them on TV, and they can't break those contracts. They have to wait. So in order for HBO to get the bigger movies, they had to wait and create a new window that movies would then go through: theatrical, then HBO, and then free television. You see, so they had lots of open space on their dance cards. So they go to Troma and they say, "We don't have any money, but when you get in with us, when we become successful, we'll be loyal to you. You'll be in on the ground floor." So okay, we sign up, and then the same thing happens with Netflix. Netflix comes along, and I had breakfast with the guy. What's the guy's name? He's in the Wall Street Journal. He's like the senior vice president of bullshit. But I would have breakfast with him, same thing, and he'd say, we're just starting out now, but, we can't pay you much, but you start with us, and we'll blah, 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 blah. And again, we have a big library of movies, so we're very useful to them.
Yeah.
And we know full well that they're going to dump us, and that the only money we'll ever see is at the beginning, because they're all going to move to Black Panther, not to, where they're going to go for the big budget, heavily advertised movies, even though they might suck and the public hates them. They either are owned by one of the studios, and they are going to play the mainstream movies because it's a club, it's a cartel. So yes, we don't do business with Netflix, and we don't do business with Amazon, and we don't do business now. We did at the beginning because they at least gave us some money, and we're always desperate, right? We're always desperate, so we have to go along with them, right? It's either that or no money. And now the deals are so bad that for independents, the Netflix, Amazon, Google, all that stuff is so bad for independents that it's not worth us. We don't go for it.
So essentially,
we've created our own world. Now, hopefully, we can build up our own streaming service. We have many, many wonderful movies by new talented the James Gunns and the Eli Roths and the Samuel Jacksons of the future, and hopefully, if you want to support truly independent cinema and find a very entertaining place to go every month, the $4.99, support Troma Now, and every subscriber helps us and helps those filmmakers get launched.
Absolutely,
right? They share whatever money we make.
Amen.
So not only the movies, but the movies by the young new filmmakers all over the world too are on Troma Now. They're really good, and I'm sure that some of the new films are directed and written by the Trey Parker and Matt Stones of the future. I'm sure.
I'm sure as well. Absolutely. Everybody has to start somewhere. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Essentially, these big companies start up, they call you when they need you, and then when they're big enough to shove the mainstream down our throats, like everybody else does, they just kick you guys to the side, which is the biggest thing with Troma. Nobody can enjoy Troma films because nobody allows us to see them. So now you guys have created your own. Go sign up, watch.troma.com. It's free for a month. It's not going to hurt you anything. Go sign up for free. Watch it. If you don't fucking love it, then you just support it, underground independent films, or better yet, you said fuck you to mainstream cinema force feeding shit down your throat for free or for $4.99.
I agree. I think Troma Now is a great value. It's movies of the future. I mean, Deadpool directors are obviously in debt to the Toxic Avenger, and they talk about it. And if you want to see movies of the future, as well as the famous Troma classics, you go to Troma Now, and you'll have a good time, no doubt. And again, we artists, we're not here for money, right? I went to Yale University. My parents gave me every advantage. I'm the ultimate bourgeois, right? I spent summers in France. My parents were jet setters. There's nothing I ski. There's nothing I didn't have that I could have been a hedge fund. I could have done anything with my life, right? I had every advantage, but I chose to be an artist, so I'm not in it for the money, right? I had every opportunity to make money, and indeed, I've been lucky at times. Every once in a while, Troma has made some money, but I'm not. We want our movies seen. So these young filmmakers whose movies are on Troma Now, they know they're not going to make money. They know that there's not going to be much money for them. They want people to see their movies, and that's what art is all about. And they hope that maybe by making their first movie or second movie or third movie, they'll get better and better at it. And maybe like James Gunn or Eli Roth, they will be able to make wonderful mainstream movies. And indeed, there are good movies made in the mainstream. Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example. It's a great film. And it's got a lot of Troma in it. And South Park is great. There's all sorts of great mainstream entertainment out there. Unfortunately, most of it sucks, but there's a lot of it that's very, very good. But if you want to encourage and support the good guys and the mainstream geniuses of tomorrow, my suggestion is go and look at Troma Now. Go look at it. And also, if you're a filmmaker, you may want to look at some of these movies too, because some of them are made for less, not less. My movies are about $500,000, but we had movies on Troma Now that were made for $2,000, and they're much more entertaining than the Green Book or whatever that thing was. Much more entertaining and original than the Green Book.
There you go. Definitely check it out. And that's awesome, man. It's like you're inspiring. Like, just the fact that you still have that attitude all these years. It's a hard thing to maintain in any industry, let alone film, music, doing anything, to maintain that same attitude and that same love towards your art, whatever it may be. So I mean, in all honesty, like, congratulations. Like, you're an inspiration to a lot of people just to still maintain that same attitude and love towards all this after all this time, even. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Paul, for appreciating that. It's a lonely business, and I've written 7 books. 5 of them are about the movie, the Troma system of making movies. And they're good because they're very inspirational, because they really show you, and they're all free. You can find them online for free. But if you're a fledgling filmmaker, it is lonely and scary, and read my books. You can find them bootlegged everywhere, and or you buy them for $1.99.
And you teach classes on the same Make Your Own Damn Movie, correct?
Yeah, I've done the Make Your Own Damn Movie master classes at Oxford University in London, or in Cambridge rather, and or in Oxford, wherever it is, at Yale, at Harvard, the Russian St. Petersburg Film Academy. I've done master classes all over the world, and they're great. They're very inspirational, and I think Troma's really the last of the independent movie studios that has any age, that's got more than 2 years of existence.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's just you're. I mean, obviously, like you said, you become the face of Troma, you and Toxie and the characters, but more so than you and your antics or your humor and you just being out there. It's your love for this industry and giving back. It's infectious, and that's what I'm saying, like, that's why fans love you, and that's why there's lines at these conventions just to say hello and buy a DVD. Like, your love is what keeps all this going, in my personal opinion. And you're always giving back. You're writing books. You're teaching classes. And then in a month from now, we have the 19th annual Troma Dance Film Festival, which is another way that you give back to the filmmakers. Like, tell them a little more about Troma Dance and like how that whole thing is, the film festival.
Good point. Troma Dance Film Festival in its 19th year is was inspired by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They when we were finishing up Cannibal the musical, they insisted on going to Sundance. And we, Troma, we don't pay to submit our movies to film festivals. We occasionally we might, if it's another director and they insist on it. But most of these film festivals, at least the mainstream festivals, they're fixed, right?
Yeah.
Right? They're fixed. It depends on who the little elite group is in with. Or it's one of the famous, Lars von Trier, the Nazi, that play his movies at Cannes. That's how they work. So we don't want to support bureaucrats on the backs of bankrupt filmmakers. So we're not paying money to send a movie to submit a movie to Sundance. We're not going to pay for that. And now, actually, I understand that when you submit a movie to Sundance, they ask you what race you are. Apparently, right? You know what that's all about. So, and they ask you what gender you are, so you know what that's all about. It has nothing to do with the film, and right? So they take the shit from Hollywood, from the lackeys. Sundance takes the shit coming out of Fox Searchlight or other vassals of the conglomerates, and then to show that they're PC, they'll bring in a few movies by black people and women and people with no arms and legs, and that kind of stuff. So the point is, Trey and Matt with Cannibal the Musical, they paid the entry fee, the submission fee, and they never got a fuck you letter. They never got any response from Sundance. So they said, hey,
wow.
Sundance didn't tell us not to come, so we're going to come. And they came, and I came with them, and they rented a place in Park City during Sundance, and they made their own film festival, one movie film festival, a Cannibal the Musical Film Festival, and it was a huge success because the Sundance screenings are they're full, most of them, and they're snotty, and the films suck for the most part. And Cannibal the Musical was a huge success. And so we decided the next year we'll do a free film festival. We'll see if we can get some sponsors and rent a theater and maybe a place on Mainstream. And that's what we did. We got a theater called Broovies, and they agreed to show them Troma Dance movies for free. And we rented a place on Main Street in Park City. Which was very, very expensive because it was during the Sundance Film Festival, and we had 2 days of filming. 2 days of movies, and all of these movies are not Troma movies. The movies Troma Dance shows are movies made by other filmmakers, and you can go to tromadance.com and you can see the movies that have been selected for the 19th. Annual Troma Dance Film Festival, which is the idea was that you could see the movies for free, you could submit the movies and not have to pay to submit your movie, and no VIP policy. And we did this festival at Sundance for about 10 years, and it's started to become looked at as a real film festival. Originally, we created Troma Dance to be a stick in the eye to snobby Sundance. Absolutely. And we caused them a fair amount of trouble, and they caused us quite a bit of trouble. Two of our volunteers had to spend the night in jail 1 year for passing out leaflets and being a little too festive, and they had the police confiscate Toxie's mop because it's a weapon. They confiscated another volunteer's accordion 1 year, even though down the street there was a shitty rock band covering Nickelback, shit. But they took the accordion away from our guy, that kind of crap. And so 10 years later, we moved, after we became a little more respected, we moved the festival, and now it's in Brooklyn. It's in Brooklyn at a beautiful venue called the $3, and it's got room for 500 or 600 people. It's 2 days. We have a music component, and we have a panel of distinguished experts to talk about breaking into the independent film industry. And we have the guy who Frank Henenlauter, him, Brain Dead, and Frankenhooker, and wonderful independent filmmaker. And we've got a few others who are even more successful. So for the panel discussions and the big after party, our after party is quite famous.
I can only imagine. That's awesome. And that's going down June 21st and 22nd, as you mentioned, at the $3 bill in Brooklyn. And, the 19th annual. That's awesome, man. I love it.
We do ask for a contribution now because Troma's incredibly broke, and we hope that our people who show up can contribute a little bit to help pay for the space, and we have to pay the bands a little bit.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, if you're an independent filmmaker, go check this out. Maybe you can even submit your movie, obviously, for next year, not in time for this year, but get involved, check it out. Like, these guys do everything they can to give back. And obviously, you guys are like the fucking punk rock of movies. Like, just the fact that, what I mean, just the story, just the little bit you just told, like, okay, you want to fucking throw us out, we're going to do our own damn thing. I remember when I was a kid, you guys on the big school bus promoting Troma Dance around at Warped Tours and shit. Like, in the true fashion of punk rock, you guys knew, obviously, the punk rock community would, be around, would like, whether they like the movies or not the movies, your attitude alone would, inspire people to check it out, and that's awesome, man. So,
yeah, that's the school bus that went along with the Warped Tour. I think eventually the Warped Tour decided that it might be better if the school bus didn't come back next year. But the great spirit, I tell you, that was and people like you remember it, right? They enjoyed it. We made people happy with our antics, and people have seen, anybody who works for us for more than 2 months, they go away with a life experience. The people who work on our movies, and you can see the behind-the-scenes feature-length documentaries. In fact, when you get the Blu-ray of Return to Nukem, a.k.a. Volume 2, there's a feature-length documentary behind the scenes that is fascinating. It's better than a year of film school. And Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, has a feature-length documentary about how we made the film. And you see people fighting, you see people fucking, you see people proposing to each other. I mean, the making of a Troma movie is unlike any filmmaking experience. It's really a life experience, and quite a number of people have gotten married. In fact, 2 of the stars of the original Toxic Avenger got married. And it's been so long, they've had kids, and they're already divorced. The whole cycle. Beautiful.
The whole cycle.
So check it. You can see the documentaries for free on YouTube, I think, but they're also on Troma Now. I think they're on Troma Now, but they're free on. I think you can see them. The documentary for I think it's free, but the new documentary about the making of Return to Nukem, aka Volume 2, is fascinating, and I guarantee you, it's worth at least a year of film school.
I can imagine. Yeah, go check it out. That's awesome, man. There's so much stuff out there. Like you said, a lot of it's free on YouTube. You can go to watch.troma.com and you can watch everything for a whole entire month for free and help support for only $4.99 a month. I know you're a busy man, Lloyd, so I'm gonna let you go. I have one more question for you because we ask all of our guests the same question because we're completely unoriginal. Even though you're a huge movie guy, obviously, we do a lot of stuff with underground music and music in general. So essentially, if you have 3 records that in your life that either inspired you, just as a man, as a person, or just that record you cannot live without, just 3 records that you could never be without. What 3 records would they be?
Well, being a gay married man, I'm very partial to musicals, so I would have to say probably Pal Joey, 1930s. Remember, I'm old. By Rodgers and Hart, Pal Joey. I would suggest Kiss Me Kate by Cole Porter, and South Pacific by Rodgers and Hammerstein. I mean, I think those. What can I tell you? I wish I were cooler, but again, I'm old.
That's all right.
But man, if you want to hear a really good band that is featured in Shakespeare's Shitstorm, check out the Cowmen. The Cowmen, very good. Or the Big Bad. The Big Bad. They're both Cowmen and Big Bad are on camera in Shakespeare's Shitstorm. But we've got Motorhead in Shakespeare's Shitstorm. We've got all sorts of interesting bands. So, there's a lot of contemporary stuff I love, but when you mention inspirational and all that kind of stuff, I'd have to say, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hammerstein, and Rodgers and Hart.
That's awesome.
And in fact, Kiss Me Kate by Cole Porter is a Shakespearean musical based on Taming of the Shrew. And I even in Shakespeare's Shitstorm, Prospero makes reference to Cole Porter, and anyone who's seen Kiss Me Kate as a song that has a rhyme about Shakespeare's play Coriolanus. So you can imagine what the lyric that with the word Coriolanus, Shakespeare's his slate plays that is not a comedy.
For sure.
So I made a tribute to Cole Porter and used Coriolanus in a similar lyric in one of our songs in Shakespeare's Shitstorm. So that's I thank you for the answer. Thank you for that question. I am very honored to. I wish I could talk about something more modern.
No, that's awesome, man. Like that's And that, generally that maybe you'll open up some people to go back and check out some musicals and inspire some new folks to learn some new music. Maybe even me. I will go and listen to that, and maybe I'll be inspired and get into musicals.
Well, and the Toxic Avenger musical, you can get it on Spotify. The songs are great. They come out. The tunes are wonderful, and the lyrics are funny as hell, and it's great. But most people, and Poultry Guy's Night of the Chicken Dead is the closest I've come to making a musical, and a lot of people don't like musicals, so they're not for everybody. But I do listen to a lot of contemporary music, and there's great. I love a lot of the stuff that's out there now, but unfortunately, it's not my favorite. I can't say that St. Vincent inspires me. I love her music, but I can't say Bjorn is great. There's great people, and with things to say. Sia is wonderful, right? She's terrific, and she's got a message. And they're serious players, but I can't say they inspired me because I'm 73 years old.
For sure.
So I was inspired back in the 60s and 50s when I was growing up, and it happened to be Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hammerstein. As far as movie makers go, it was Charlie Chaplin and Jean Renoir and Fritz Lang and Leni Riefenstahl, and Spielberg wasn't around when I was in 10th grade or whatever, right?
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Spielberg would not really inspire me today, although I like his films, but I can't say he'd inspire me.
Yeah. No, I totally. I wonder, have you ever thought of what maybe Charlie Chaplin or someone that inspired you would think of the Troma films that they came to inspire?
Well, the people, there are all sorts of mainstream directors and writers who have seen Terra Firma and Romeo and Juliet. Usually the ones who are intelligent and who understand cinema and who get the subtexts and can get over the sex and violence, they love our movies. The New York Times has always given us great reviews, and except for the last one. And you can edit that part out where I said except for the last one. I'm joking. But the point is, the intelligent people who know movies, they get Troma. They love Troma. And there are all sorts of big stars who'd love to play in a Troma movie, but we don't have money to go with union contracts. We have thousands of people in our movies. We can't afford to pay the rates for Screen Actors Guilds. John Voight would play he'd play for nothing in a Troma movie. So would Matthew Gray Gubler, star of Criminal Minds. There's tons of famous people, but we can't afford to sign a contract with the Screen Actors Guild. And if they play in a Troma movie, they'll get fined or maybe kicked out of the union. Actually, Stan Lee was in the Screen Actors Guild, and he was in about 10 of our movies. But we credited him as Peter Parker. His name was never on screen. I guess the Screen Actors Guild knew that if they did anything, I would spend $50,000 on legal fees just to fuck with them. I'd sue them back, and I'd do all sorts of. I've got enough money so I could be a nasty little. Because I have a feeling stopping people from working is illegal. Yeah. I left the Directors Guild because they kept accusing me of directing movies, which I was, but I never used my name, so they could never kick me out. But back in 1985 or 86, I resigned because they kept bothering me. So, my guess is you could have some fun with them if they came after you. I'm in the Screen Actors Guild. I've acted in about 300 non-union movies. They come, if they want to kick me out, fine.
That's insane. That's crazy.
But if they did, if the union came to me, if they kicked me out, I would get a lawyer and try to fight it and see what happens. Sure. And that may be why they haven't kicked me out.
But yeah, I mean that's just that seems like old. It seems like it's an old idea. I mean, obviously it wouldn't hurt you.
You're right.
Like a big actor, like if you choose to do something out of love, then let them do it. But I get the idea of them not wanting to get ripped off because, in Hollywood movies, it's a different world because people would use you for free just because you want to be in a movie, and now you're not getting paid, and directors make millions of dollars and don't pay actors. So I get that side of it. But the fact that somebody would want to come and do a film like yours, that's just ignorant that they won't allow it.
Yep, that's the problem. So, and of course, somebody like, a big star is, if you make a mistake, it costs them millions of bucks.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Right. Let's talk to James Gunn about some of the tweets he and I had together. Got him into some trouble, right? It's if you're talking about millions of dollars, it's not worth it being an extra in a Troma, doing a cameo in a Troma movie for sure. It'd be insane if you're going to get into trouble with your union. So that's the point, and I don't care about stars. My movies are about my movies, right? The star of Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, he looks like a real guy who works in a fast food establishment. If I got Justin Bieber to play that part, it's me, Justin. You cannot look at one of these stars. Right? You can't look at a movie star in a movie without saying that's a movie star.
Yeah.
Doesn't whatever his name is, Ryan Reynolds? He's the genius. He's wonderful, but he's Ryan Reynolds. He can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Unless you cover his face up in a Toxic Avenger appliances, But the point is, I prefer the new people because they are more realistic. In the same way that I prefer working in a real location because it's real, and then my movies are totally insane. So if two of the legs of the tripod are kind of in reality, if I have 2 feet in reality, one, the actor looks real, and 2, the location is real, then the third part can be as crazy as I want, and the public most likely will enjoy it. The problem is we don't have the money to advertise, and we are not in the club with the cartel, with the oligopoly. We don't partner with the vassals of these giant conglomerates. So nobody knows about our movies except you and 10 other people. So it's up to you. It's up to you to spread the Troma love and keep the Troma spirit going.
Absolutely. We're going to do our damnedest to help spread the Troma love and let more people know about you. And, obviously now they can, with watch.troma.com, they can go check it out for themselves and decide how much they love it or don't love it and learn a little bit of movie history along the way. So, and hopefully we can get you down to our area in St. Louis, but
that would be great.
That's to be seen, man.
If any of your listeners want to talk to me, I do my own Twitter and my own Instagram. And there's a fan site, LloydKaufmann.com, which I don't do, but they send me the messages. So, if you want to reach me, Twitter is the best way, probably.
That's just at Lloyd Kaufmann?
Yes, at Lloyd Kaufmann.
There you go. Reach out to Lloyd. Tell him how much you love them on Replicon.
Instagram also. I do Instagram. I answer those queries.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate you calling in, hanging out with us. Officially welcome to the Replicon Radio family. So if you got shit going on in the future, man, you want us to promote a movie, plug something, just send it our way, man. We'll do what we can to let the listeners know and help support you and your movement.
Could you make sure that you send us your email so I make sure our spokesperson, our PR guy, puts you on our mailing list?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that.
So whoever you're in touch with at Troma, or send them your say you want to be on the mailing list.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely promote all the projects. And besides Troma Dance, are there any other appearances going on that you wanted to talk about, or any last words or shout outs or plugs, anything else?
Well, my schedule is usually on my fan site, LloydKaufmann.com. I think the next big thing is Troma Dance. Again, you can keep an eye on the Troma website, and Troma has a Facebook. Troma's Facebook talks about all the upcoming events and my signings and stuff like that. There's San Diego Comic-Con coming up. I'm in a movie in Chicago. I just don't have my schedule in front of me. But the Troma Facebook will have Troma events coming up and various screenings. And my fan site has my schedule, I hope.
Hopefully. You can find it. Everything's online. Worst case scenario, just go to Troma.com, www.troma, Troma.com. That'll eventually link you up to everything. And obviously, Troma Now.
And, yep, if you're in New York area, we have Troma Tuesdays. Every Tuesday we have free screenings. In Sydney, Australia, there's Troma Now, Troma Tuesday in Toronto. So every Tuesday we have free screenings in Toronto, Sydney, Australia, and New York. And there might be, if there are venues in your city that want free, if they want to open their, these are mainly clubs or bars, and they have a Troma Tuesday, and they let their customers watch the movies for free. And so if there are any places that don't charge admission, don't charge for tickets, we give our movies for free on Tuesday.
Awesome. Hell yeah. Well, there you go. Check that out. All kinds of free movies, free entertainment, giving back.
It's all back to the, it's all on the Troma Facebook and my various Twitter and website and all that. Okay?
Awesome. Well, yeah, everybody go check that shit out. Thank you, man. Much love for real.
I can't wait to listen to this particular program, but I do listen to all your programs, and they're really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. We appreciate you, man. Much love.
All right. Well, best wishes, and keep in touch. Thank you. Stay toxic.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Repliconradio.com.